Hello, everybody. It is November 6th, 2021, and this is CLog number 5. You're going to have to forgive some of the background noise. My daughter is finally getting over what we originally thought was a cold, but we found out late last night that it was COVID. Her test came back and came back as positive. We were hoping that it was a false positive, but after talking to the pediatrician, we realized that it was positive. So that probably means that my COVID test yesterday was a false negative. So which means that my pneumonia is probably that away. So I'll find out next week when I go back in, and they'll probably give me another COVID test. But tonight, I wanted to kind of talk to you about several things I've been working on. It's been a relatively good day. You're going to have to forgive me. This is day 6 of after chemo, and I'm really starting to feel the effects of all of that, and my muscles are hurting, my bones are hurting, everything's hurting. I'm just hurting. My stomach's upset, not badly, but just hurting. I've got a old-fashioned heating pad on that I use for my shoulder because for some reason my shoulder is absolutely killing me, and I've got no reason for it to do that. So I'm using everything that I can. I've already taken some ibuprofen earlier today, and I've drunk some tea and done just about everything that I can. But they said that days 7 through 10 would be the ones where you'd be the worst off, and that's where I'm at. And sure enough, I even have we originally thought it was just the old man gait, struggling around. Now we've come to realize that it's the cancer gait, and it's where you're basically struggling to get around, because Michelle's aunt, my wife's aunt, used to have the same gait when she was going through cancer before they took her leg. And now we're realizing that it's just cancer. It's the chemotherapy. It's causing everything to kind of just ache, and that's where we're at. So today I wanted to talk about something pretty important, and that's cancer, income, and end-of-life planning. Jolly stuff, I know. No, it actually comes pretty important because most cancer patients, especially for those of us who have pancreatic cancer, we're one of the few people that actually realize that we're coming close to our shelf life, the end of our shelf life. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're coming close to our expiry date. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to extend our shelf life. And that's what we're trying to do here is extend that shelf life as long as possible. So I can't really talk about income because the further or the deeper I get into it, the further that it's not going to make a lot of sense if I don't talk about at least a little bit of genetics. No, that does make sense, but when it comes to cancer, everything kind of we've been discovering that everything kind of ties in together, which is really weird, but it does. So this genetics is a topic I fully intend to go through in a week or two, because it's fascinating stuff. But what I wanted to say is that I have what's called a BRCA1 mutation gene. BRCA1 is detectable by certain genetic tests, and it is one of the genes that it makes you highly susceptible to, if you're a female, female ovarian and ovarian and breast cancer, and for men, prostate, pancreatic, and several other types of cancer. And basically, what happens is that if you don't have this mutation and you have the normal BRCA1 gene, then you are highly resistant to those types of cancer. Not always, but generally. But if that gene is switched off, then you got a problem. That's where I'm at. My grandmother, on my mother's side, and all of these mutations come from my mother's side. That is the Dutch side. We've been figuring out. My grandmother died from cancer, melanoma, and of course it's cancer. Cancer. That was back in the 90s. Then in 17 years ago, one of her daughters, not my mother, but another daughter, had both breast and ovarian cancer. And by that time, they had been working on the Human Genome Project, and they found out that she had the BRCA1. Her boys got tested, at least two of them did, and they both found out that they had the BRCA1 mutation as well. Now, not many other people in my family got tested. My mother has never had cancer. It is passed down through the female line of the family. That's what it appears. Let me just say that. That's what it appears. It goes down through the female line of the family. And I come to find out that after my cancer, we're doing a lot of genetic testing. I've been really working with the geneticist, and that part of my whole thing is kind of over, but or diagnosis and everything. Come to find out that I have the BRCA1 mutation, which invariably means that my mother has it as well. She's never been tested. She's going to be, but pretty good bet unless for some reason it jumped her, which would be really strange. Why do I bring this up? Well, okay. So, years ago, health insurance, when things were beginning to, when people were beginning to realize the importance of genetic testing and what that did for the possibility of realizing the human genome and understanding how it affects our health. At that point, health insurances could use that information to declare it if you had one of these BRCA1 or BRCA2, or maybe a couple other genetic mutations, could declare them as pre-existing conditions and deny you coverage. Of the two things that came out of the Obamacare, destruction of the pre-existing care, part of the whole of, you can't be disqualified for pre-existing conditions, and the other one was you can't go into bankruptcy for medical costs. Those are the only two things that I really like. You'll find out why in a bit. So for health insurance, after 2009, so before that, between so up until 2009, health insurance could discriminate. That's my understanding. I may be wrong. Apologize. So, but that's my understanding. After that, they could no longer discriminate with health, for pre-existing conditions for something that you really can't change. It's just kind of your makeup. But that does not include life insurance. And here's where I'm leading to. Life insurance is very well able to discriminate with people that have the BRCA1 mutation. So that whole 2-year contestability period that all life insurance policies have. So within 2 years of you buying the policy, and if you die within 2 years of that, they may not have to pay out. So realize that is a possibility. So why am I going? This seems like a real tangent. What am I going off on? Here's my point. If you have a female parent that has had, if you've not been genetically tested, and you have had a genetic, if you have not been tested, and you have had a parent that has had cancer, mainly a female parent, then you may want to think about getting life insurance, because they cannot discriminate against you for something that you do not know. I'm not going to tell you what type of policy to get. Let me just say I have a whole life. A lot of people really laugh at me when I say that, but it's like, you don't know my circumstances when I started buying it, when I bought it 12 years ago. I was a young man, but I was overweight. But there was a lot going on in my health at that time. And a long-term care policy was not going to, I could have afforded it when I was 10 years older. There's no way I could have afforded a brand new policy. That's number one. Variable rate policies. When I left the insurance industry, they were blowing up. Everybody realized that the golden era of variable rate policies was completely different than what everybody thought it had been, and everybody was getting left out in the arms. They were kind of like ARMs, adjusted rate mortgages, and people hadn't paid their premiums for years, and all of a sudden, they were without life insurance because they had neglected to ever realize that the stock market had gone way down, and they had needed to start paying their premiums. And so I bought the policy I bought because that was the right thing for me. May not be the right thing for you. You'll need to make that decision. But the reason why, that's a roundabout discussion on, if you do not know if you have the cancer gene mutation, but you do have a parent who's had a female parent that has the cancer gene, that has cancer, you may want to think about going in and getting at least some life insurance. That's the reason why. So, what does a cancer diagnosis mean for a person in the midst of their earning years? Depends on the cancer. For me, it's devastating. This is a 2.5-year battle, at least. 2.5 years of nonstop chemotherapy and genetic clinical trials. I can't work during that time. There's no way. That means all the income that I would have had during that time is out the window. And I was at the prime. MBA, bachelor's, MBA, experience. Not saying it's all gone, but I'm going to be completely and totally different man by the time I get done with this. 2.5 years of that, and about 2 years to recover. It's out of the workforce. Absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating. It's really tough to try and figure out long-term implications. I mean, I can try to, but $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 at least, probably more. Money that my family needed. So let's move on. So that's kind of what you have to think about when you have a cancer diagnosis. Some people can work, or some people think they can work. That's great. More power to you. Your pancreatic cancer, non-lymphomic Hodgkin's, leukemia, things like that, that's probably not going to happen. You are probably going to be out for the count. When I was going in for my first chemo treatment the other day, I met a woman that was 1 day older than me. Exactly 1 day older than me. I it was so funny. She said her date of birth, and my ears popped up, and then they said her name, or they said my name, and both of us responded. We were 1 day apart, and 1 letter apart in our names. It was so weird. So here she is. She's a 47-year-old woman. 2 kids, divorced. And she was on our hiatus year. She's already 2 years into her chemo treatment. Started when she was 45. Some sort of leukemia. And this was her down year. 2 years on, 1 year off. 2 years on, 1 year off. 2 years on, 1 year off. How can you work? What can you do? There's no way. So you have to start thinking about income. What can you do? What is available? We were lucky. One of the things we thought, Michelle, my wife and I thought that she would be the one that would have cancer. It may still happen. Reason is because, remember, my mother has not had cancer. It's completely out of the realm of possibility in our minds. So we had what's called a critical illness policy. And the critical illness policy pays out a certain amount of money for the first critical illness. And we kept that on. Originally, I was paying for it when I was working at our company. But when I was laid off from there, back in 2017, she took it on because we felt it was necessary, because we just didn't know if she wouldn't have cancer at one time or another. And because, like her mother's had cancer. Her mother's had cancer, and then her aunt was having cancer, and so, greater possibility of her having cancer. That's what our thought was. Keep the critical care policy, get some money paid out. So there's one option. Second option, and probably the absolute hardest mentally thing I have ever had to do, was contact the Social Security disability. Because that's not me. I've been working since I was 12. I gave money to people. You needed money, I gave you money. So we knew we needed income. And one of the things that we had to do is figure out whether or not we'd even be eligible. Michelle was looking online and for our daughter, because our daughter, you can hear her stimming in the background. She has autism. Probably not going to be able to work a lot. Okay. So she was looking at the different aspects, and she came across the different things that were considered part of disability, and she saw cancer diagnoses. So we were looking through them, and there'd be this cancer diagnosis, and be all these different things that'd be under there, and then you'd be this diagnosis, and all these things out of there, this diagnosis, and all things, and then there's pancreatic cancer, and that's all there was. Pancreatic cancer. There was nothing else underneath it. If you had pancreatic cancer, you're automatically considered disabled. The form took me an hour and a half to fill out. That's it. Long form. A lot of questions. You have to be brutally honest. But that's what I'm here for. I'm being brutally honest. And I got a call the next day from the Social Security Administration. Asked me a couple questions to clarify a few things. He said, well, you're working at this Burger King back in 1991, and then all of a sudden you were working at this Burger King in 1991. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's easy enough to explain. The first Burger King burned down. The second Burger King is where the franchise owner transferred us to, so we could all keep our jobs. So it was pretty easy to explain that. I got a payout, or they declared me disabled, and I got a rather large payout beginning at December of 2020. I understand it's my money. I understand I've earned it, as far back as 1991. I understand that. But you got to understand a man's pride. And still has pride. What's another form of income? Side hustles. I owned apartments, and I owned apartments. I bought them when the market was very low back in 2008. It was a great buy. I put 20% down, and I worked on the apartments myself, and did everything that I could to keep them up. In fact, people would come in and would say, they'd look around and they'd ask me the price, and I'd tell them, and they're like, well, it's a little too steep, especially since you do water, sewer, and trash. But do you have any other apartments that are a little bit cheaper? Because it's really nice here. I'm like, no, I don't. These are the only ones. I kept them for 10 years, and I raised the entire area's property value. I bought the places for 52. I sold it for 100,000. And I sold them in September of 2020. I'm very glad that I did. They had been on the market for almost 2 years. I wasn't anxious to let them go, but I wasn't anxious to keep them, Several people had tried to chew me down, and I'm like, no, you are not chewing me down to your price. I'm firm where I'm at because I think it's a reasonable price. And the neighborhood, I brought the neighborhood up because I not only kept my property value up, I improved it. So, no, I'm not taking bites out of me. So, I sold them, and I'm very glad I did, because there's absolutely no way I would have had any energy starting in January of 2021 to even think about going out there and doing it. It's almost impossible to even think about it. Me crawling under things I used to do, crawling into the drum of a washing machine to fix it, or underneath, or going in and cleaning up and spending an entire day there. It just makes me fatigued thinking about it. So you have to think about what you may have been doing previously. Maybe you had a vending machine business, or a vending machine business. You're not going to be able to do that. You're just not. You're going to be so tired. You're not going to be able to go out and stock vending machines. Okay, let me qualify that. I couldn't. I don't have the energy. Once you start chemo, you probably won't either. But you may be able to. Any sort of thing like that is going to be really hard to maintain. So something with passive income is probably going to be your best bet. So you need to think about that. Number 4 on the list. Another hard one for a man. Donations. I have never seen more generosity since I got cancer than I have in the last 3 months. when we told my neighbor, who's a 65-year-old man, actually 67 now, him and his wife came over and said, "You do not have to worry about the lawn anymore. We will take care of it." Granted, he loves to mow the lawn. That's what he does. If he could mow the lawn every single day, he'd do it. He just loves mowing his lawn. But he mows our lawn. It hurts me. But I also know that my wife can't do it all the time because I'm sick. I know I can't do it. I don't have the energy. I might do one swipe and be like, "I'm good. I'm going to go sit down now." So, and then one of my wife's friends set up a meal train for us while I was in the hospital. I don't know how to express thanks for that because she was out there, she'd work all day, she'd come and see me, or that Friday she would be there the entire day. Being able to come home and everybody already being fed. Praise God for that. I mean, it's just, it's just amazing. And then finally, health insurance. Health insurance is not going to be your income, but what it is going to do is going to be protecting most of your income. Not all of it. So you may still have deductibles. We blew our deductible out of the water. I mean, we took care of that by June or July, I forget. I got a bill. Excuse me, I did not get a bill. I got one of those claim notices, those reams and reams and reams of paper. Well, I think they got a actual copier selection of paper and just put that down on the printer and just printed my name on it, just for 1 month. That's from June 10th through the 1st of October. $283,000 that we didn't have to pay. Now, granted, next year we're going to have to cover our deductible again, our family deductible. Any money that we have gotten in, we're already setting that aside. That's set aside, ready to go, because we know it's coming. That's what you'll have to do. Because just because you got insurance doesn't mean it's going to cover your family deductible. You have to take care of that. So, think about what you can do. Can you afford a critical illness policy? Are you going to qualify for Social Security disability? Is there any side hustles that involve passive income? Don't solicit donations, but you'll probably get some. Be thankful. Be thankful for insurance, because if you've got it, it's a godsend. So the next thing that I want to talk about is end of life. I have an expiry date. I know what that is. I have a 60-40 chance. My expiry date is 2 years. It's normal time. However, that doesn't mean I'm not going to live longer. I am young. I was losing weight before all this happened. I'm actually able to go into clinical trials because of the mutation that I have. So all those are going to extend my shelf life. So I could be on the shelf for a long time. That's what I'm hoping for. 10, 15, 20 years would be great. So you have to think about that. So where does your insurance come in with all of that? Insurance is not what you think about. It's not what you think. You think it's for your funeral and things like that. Yes. And no. Insurance should be for taking care of your beneficiaries to a point where they don't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from. There's enough life insurance out there to actually pay for the house off. It'll pay the house off. Pay another car. And that's going to be fine. That'll be enough. The thing is that, let me just say this. If we had to take insurance costs out of that, then we start to really see a difference in the amount of money that's out there. See here, the cost of an average, and I'm not let me just qualify again what I'm saying here. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an insurance broker. And I am not a funeral director. These are just things I've learned. However, the cost of an average funeral in years previously went up about 7% a year. That was up until about 2 or 3 years ago. Then the cost started spiking upwards of anywhere between 11 to 15%. Why? Think about it. Baby boomers started to die. So how much money does that translate to? Anywhere between $11,000 and $15,000 for a funeral. You see, a funeral home is the most recession-proof business in the world. But they are a business. They're not trying to make things difficult for you. They want to make it as smooth and easy for you as possible. So, when you come in to a funeral home, there's usually only one reason why you're doing it. And that's because you have a loved one that has passed away. So you need a funeral. Great. Here's the cost. Do you want flowers? Yes. Okay. Here's the cost. Do you want this casket? Or do you want this luxurious casket? Well, we think Grandma deserves a luxurious casket. Okay, great. Here's that cost. Now, do you want this sarcophagus or that sarcophagus? This sarcophagus will let water in. That sarcophagus will be airtight. We want it airtight. Okay, fine. They're not being unscrupulous. Everything is above board. But they are upselling you. It's just the way it is. And they would rather people come in when they have a loved one that has passed away and buy their funerals than they will have prepaid. When all this was discovered, one of the first things we sat down and did, we discussed getting prepaid funerals. And that's what we did. It cost us a lot less. Whereas for one person, it might cost anywhere between $11,000 and $15,000. For the two of us, it cost less than $10,000. And go to a reputable funeral home. One that's been around for years and will continue to be around for years. Because they don't tend to go bankrupt. And if they do, it's because somebody's doing something nefarious. I won't tell you who we went to. That's up to you. But if you do it now, when you're actually making the choices, rather than when your wife is distraught at your death, or your husband, your significant other is distraught at your death or your imminent demise, then you can discuss everything. I want these songs. I don't want these songs. I want this charity to receive any gifts, or I want that charity to receive any gifts. Things like that. Then you're all done. You don't have to worry about it. And here's the thing. When it comes time for the life insurance to be paid out, that doesn't have to be a worry either, because you've already paid. Generally, it does not include funeral plots. You'll have to do that separately. Not a big deal. Same thing. However, you may want to consider the difference between cremation and burial. For me, I chose cremation. Why? Because I don't want to be stuck in a box. It's never what God intended. We're from dust we began, from dust we return. Well, not if I've been bombed and stuck into a box that's stuck into a stone mausoleum or a stone sarcophagus. Then you're just stuck there for years and years and years. It takes years for you to decompose. Nah. Make it fast. Make it quick. Get me out of there. Put me in an urn, and I'm done. I'm dust. It's fine. Perfectly acceptable. And the thing is that I can share a plot with my wife. Perfect. That's what I want. Final thing I want to talk about is long-term care policies. I know this is wrongly long, and I'm trying to wrap it up here. Long-term care policies. Long-term care policies are policies that you pay for to really take care of you when you are coming to the end of your life and you need to go into assisted living. When my wife's aunt had cancer, we had to put her into an assisted living. And the great thing is that she was competent. And we had a family discussion about what we wanted to do. And I tell you what, the difference between a long-term care policy being able to provide money for it, it's not going to cover all of it, but it will cover, a good fair chunk of it, compared to a Medicaid facility. It's night and day. Trust me. The facility she was at was phenomenal. She was just so sick she couldn't take advantage of all of it. But the round the clock abilities that they were able to provide her, and they loved her. They just loved her. and they loved us, and we loved them. And it was just absolutely amazing. But the long-term care policy was one of those things that the younger you start, the less it is. So if you're 30 or 40, probably want to start now. Because if you get if later in life and it looks like you're going to live for a very long time, the premiums are out of this world. Really, really, really bad. Seems like a lot of stuff that I'm talking about. Now, here's the thing: I can no longer get one. I'm completely disqualified now because of cancer. Because they do not want to take care of me. I don't mind. That's the way it is. I'm, but my wife can probably get one. We probably will. We'll see. So those are some things that's my thoughts about different things. And I hope you find them useful. Income during cancer is iffy. You're not going to have enough of it. Pure and simple. If you do, perfect. Way to go. Congratulations. Glad for you. It's a matter of being frugal, because if you aren't, your investments are going to dry up really fast. Consolidate all of your IRAs out there. If you've got IRAs in 3 or 4 places from 3 or 4 different jobs, find the one that's paying the best and put it all in there. Don't leave them in different places because they're racking up fees. Just get it all done. Just take care of it. And do it before you get so sick you can't even think about it. Reason why I'm talking about some of these things now is because the chemo hasn't fully started really kicking into and causing me real trouble with my cognitive ability. Because it will. Eventually it'll be hard for me to think or understand or for complete thoughts. I'll get most of that back. I understand that. But the thing is I want you people out there to understand that there are steps you can take right now and decisions you can make at this point in your own life to prepare you for things that may happen. So do so. So tot ziens. Remember to like, subscribe, and share the video if you found it useful. I'll return in a couple of days. I'm quarantined, even more so now because of my daughter. Like I said, I have pneumonia. It might be COVID pneumonia, in which case I'll be completely and totally out of it for a while. But I've been feeling pretty good all day and thought I would finish this up. So you guys have a good day, and we will see you later. Bye.